Welcome back everyone to the Finding Your Freedom podcast, where today I'm talking about the best things in recovery, having last time talked about the more difficult things. So let's just get straight into them. Okay, number one, body changes. I talked about this in my other episode where I talked about the difficulties, but yes, there are positives with body changes. Some of those changes initially are hard, but for everything I struggled with, there was a positive. Being so underweight as I was at the time of starting recovery, I actually had to acknowledge that any time my body could probably give up. And so as I saw it change, the positive for me was that I knew every day I was getting further and further away from that risk of becoming quite unwell. I was building up my immunity, I was healing those weary organs that were trying to work really hard to keep me going, and I was just adding years onto my life. And I started to feel more alive. Now I'll add in here that there might be periods during your recovery where you might actually feel really tired and fatigued, as your body does take all you are eating and all the energy from that to repair your body, which can leave you feeling a little bit low energy. But once that is done and the changes start to happen, it's quite subtle at first, and you don't really get up ready to run a marathon now you've eaten a few bars of chocolate, but you do notice the energy changes. So getting out of bed feels easier, even though I hadn't really noticed it was hard before. I had a bit more of a spring in my step when I walked. I just felt physical sensations that had been numbed before. I would feel warm and not cold all the time. I had colour in my cheeks, and it felt like my body had kind of changed from winter to spring. I think that's the only way I can really describe it. But yes, positive body changes. And mental changes. So let's start with the first one, less noise. Now this one really blew me away, as I'd not expected that if I recovered I would feel so relieved. I no longer had an eating disorder, but I was not prepared. Let me go back and say that again. What really blew me away was, of course, I knew I would feel relieved that I no longer had an eating disorder. I was not prepared for how much changed in my head, how much shifted and became easier. So gone is the incessant food noise, the decisions that took up so much time. Should I eat it? Should I not eat it? If I do eat it, what can I do to make up for eating it? What should I not eat to make up for eating it? Weighing food, counting calories, constant food planning. With all that space in my head that would previously been full of noise, it left room for excitement to creep in about other things, space to think about what I could do to fill up my time that would actually make me happy and bring me some joy. And it honestly felt like a new world had opened up, a whole new world of possibilities. A new sense of confidence. Your eating disorder likes you to feel that you're really nothing without it, and that's really how I think it keeps you trapped. So you become isolated and fearful all the time, and you fear a world without it because that feels unsafe, and you start to question everything outside that safe place. And I was so consumed with staying in my safe place, I feared any change in my life, even if I didn't like things or people or situations. Being safe felt better than taking any risks. I just had no idea that with every step through recovery and every step outside that safety of my eating disorder, I would become not just less afraid of the eating disorder, but found I was less afraid of everything. My mind opened up to the fact that if my whole life had to change for whatever reason, if I had to move home, find a new job, lose a relationship, it would be okay. And it would be okay because safety can be overrated if it keeps you trapped and unhappy. And well, life is about new things, it's about change, it's about new opportunities, and embracing that when it comes along and not letting fear hold you back. Next positive, my ability to set boundaries around my health and well-being, and well, pretty much everything else in my life. Once you start to know what you want outside of your eating disorder, when you found that space in your head, you will find that you don't tolerate things that stop you getting what you want, maybe like you used to. Because you've worked too hard for recovery to let people define your limits of what is next. So before I move on to my next recovery win, I thought I'd share a bit with you about how setting boundaries does become a little bit easier and the reasons why. Firstly, your brain and body are nourished again. So when you're malnourished, your brain struggles with decision making and confidence and emotional regulation. But as you recover and start to feel your body consistently, you will regain this kind of mental clarity and energy that you actually really need to speak up and set boundaries. And you will have the strength to enforce boundaries. It's amazing how food and nourishment can really give you that strength and clarity in your mind that you didn't even know that you needed. Next reason setting boundaries becomes easier, because recovery builds your self-worth. So at the start of recovery, you might feel undeserving of having needs met or say no to people, especially if, like me, you have people-pleasing tendencies. But as recovery progresses and doing the work on your self-worth, you begin to feel much more strongly that your health, your safety, your needs and your peace matter. With growing self-worth comes just a strength to protect yourself through setting boundaries on what you need. Thirdly, you become more emotionally aware, because eating disorders often serve to numb emotions or feelings, especially if trauma has played a part in your eating disorder. And it's so important in recovery that you learn to sit with those hard feelings and fears, to identify triggers and understand your own needs and wants. When you start to feel all those emotions, it will become so much more obvious when a boundary needs to be set. Because if something or someone makes you feel sad or scared or angry, or if they're taking advantage, you will feel those feelings so much harder than you did before. And so it becomes easier to recognise when a boundary is needed. Next reason boundaries become easier, because you gain your voice and you gain confidence. It was such a key part of my recovery to have my own scripts and phrases to keep my mindset positive, to keep me strong, to silence all those fears. And by finding that voice I use with myself, it became much easier and much less awkward to have a voice with other people and tell people when something isn't okay. The next reason, in recovery, you might find that some of your relationships change, and those who don't support you might disappear or fall away. But you will also find yourself seeking out people who respect your healing and are cheering on your strength and your power that you are finding in recovery. So just by being in safer relationships with people who you know are supporting you through all the hard times, your relationships become easier and setting boundaries becomes easier, because you'll find yourself surrounded by people who respect your boundaries. And lastly, about boundaries, you will realise that boundaries are not selfish. They are acts of self-care. Putting yourself first is not selfish, it's essential. It's like when you're told on a flight that in an emergency you have to put on your own mask first. When your own needs are met, yes, you will still have time and energy for other people, but only for those people who deserve it. And my final positive about recovery was the decision to be a coach. Because they do say you never work a day in your life if you do a job that you love. And I've worked in law for most of my career, and I've done quite well, and I've met amazing people, and I've learned so much about myself, about life, about other people. And while I enjoy that job, I always had a sense that there was something else out there for me. So in my recovery, working with my coach, I kind of found myself wondering if I could maybe play a part in changing someone else's path, wondering if I could help someone like me. And we had a session where she asked me what I wanted in my future outside of recovery. And that was the same as it had always been, which is to help other people, but maybe not in the same way. And she suggested that I try coaching. And I think the reason she did is because she could see how much my recovery meant to me and how much it changed me. So here I am now, doing what I can to make it better for one person or many people. Those of us who've had the privilege to recover need to shout as loud as possible that it's possible. We have platforms now, podcasts, social media. We have an audience of men and women who might be afraid and need to see evidence of what is possible. Okay, that's it for today. I really hope my positive experiences inspire some of you who can't see past the fear of recovery. And if anybody needs some support, please do reach out.